Just doing a sound check to make sure. The toxic sporting culture of the status quo has only gone on to...
Wait, sorry. I'll just introduce the start of the debate when we start. Okay. Welcome everybody to round 2 of the New Zealand Schools Debating Championship. The debate is between Bay of Plenty on the affirmative and Otago-Southland on the negative. And we would now invite the first affirmative speaker to begin today's debate.
The toxic sporting culture of the status quo has only gone on to cause extreme harm to the diversity of New Zealand's identity, both on the national stage and as individuals, and has done so extremely regrettably. This side will win the debate based on which side gives the most benefit and value to New Zealanders as individuals, and we will run through our first points. The first point we'll be bringing for our case is that the glorification of sport causes irreversible harms to New Zealanders, both in their development and as individuals. Our second substantive will be that it goes on to shun other cultural and academic potential in New Zealanders, specifically youth. Our third substantive will be on the over-glorification of masculine qualities to a harmful degree in the New Zealand psyche. And our second speaker will cover how there is a cultural expectation and pressure from society to conform to a sport which is harmful for youth and New Zealanders as a whole. Moving into our first substantive argument for today. So, our national identity is one where the titans of the sporting world are given infinite accolades, infinite praise for their achievements on both the national and international stage. Our identity has been constructed in such a way where there is no praise for anything else. There is no room for praise for anything else, where people are not given the equivalent praise for equivalent achievements in non-sporting fields. These fields would be something like academics or the artistic trades. It makes New Zealand's identity extraordinarily shallow because it's only about sport and nothing else. Because of the shallowness in our identity, because of this, under the status quo, New Zealand has become so sport-focused that it becomes our only focus and anything else becomes subpar. The harm that this goes on to encourage is that people are now encouraged to commit to a sport even when we don't want to, because the national identity is actively going against what our independent individual identities want to express. What do we see from this? Well, we see New Zealanders start being torn apart because we feel like outsiders in our own country. The harm in this is that we are isolated from the rest of the country, isolated because we want to pursue something that's different to the status quo. We want to pursue something such as academics or be under the artistic field, but we are unable to really express that desire, express those traits, because under the New Zealand's national identity, where sport is the first and foremost point in any type of degree, what we see is that these types of people are shunned, these types of people are suppressed, because all that matters in our national identity is sport. Everything else needs to be disregarded because it's not as important. This is the fatal flaw to New Zealand's national identity, and it's what is tearing apart our society, because New Zealanders don't feel like they're New Zealanders. They feel like they're outsiders, they're isolated. And that's the harm that is caused by the glorification of sport under the national identity. Now, moving into our second substantive, and let's look more closely at how the actively shunning of cultural and academic potential in Kiwis is actually extremely detrimental to us as people moving into the future, and also us as an identity. Now, the range of possibilities that are open to New Zealanders are extremely vast, extremely broad, but the New Zealand identity actively goes on to shun cultural and academic achievement. Now, when you base your nation's story of greatness on the triumph of its rugby, and you allow it to be the only event taking the limelight, you close every other avenue of expression available, because what you are getting is an avenue of expression that is exclusively pointed at sport. It is only going to be focused on the athletic talent of the nation rather than the talent of academics or the talent of those culturally inclined. Now, if we look at schools specifically, whether this is most detrimental, we have the sporting teams such as schools first 15 or first 11, the rugby and hockey teams respectively, where they are given all the attention, all the accolades, where they are put on this pedestal over everyone else, where they get all of this fame, funding, and future. What we see is that other avenues, other areas of expertise, such as productions or science fairs, or those types of opportunities, they're seldom given the limelight, they're seldom given the spotlight in those types of institutions, and because of the national identity. And what we see from this is we are strangling those types of avenues of expression because they are not given the necessary attention, necessary outlook that they truly desire. And this is where our national identity goes on to shun and suppress every other form of expression apart from sport. Now, the problem this reinforces is that it goes on to suddenly become very un-New Zealand or very un-Kiwi to actually pursue anything that isn't sport. If you are less athletic inclined, you don't want to do a sport, but you want to do something such as debating, or you want to do something as drama, you are not going to be perceived as being like a real Kiwi, a real New Zealander, because under the cultural identity, a real New Zealander isn't a person who doesn't do sport. It's not someone who goes on and plays drama. It's someone, a real New Zealander, according to the status quo, according to our national identity, is someone who goes and plays rugby. It's someone who goes and plays football. It's someone who goes and plays a sport at the most competitive level possible. That is what New Zealand is going on to encourage in our society. And because of this, society now begins to shun or fail to recognize any other achievement because they're not as valuable. Moving into our third substantive argument, and on the over-glorification of masculine qualities that the status quo actively encourages within our educational system and within the state as a whole. Now, in our sport-focused culture, we prioritize masculine qualities or athletic qualities above all else, because those are the types of qualities that make people the best athletes, the best sportsmen possible. Now, boys and men are all, so when sports require different qualities to fields such as I'll take that point. Was that a point?
If toxic masculinity is always going to exist inside sport, don't we hold sport to a higher standard when it becomes our national identity?
Sorry, can you say that again? I can't.
If toxic masculinity is always part of sport, aren't we more likely to get rid of that sort of stuff when we hold sport to a higher standard because it's our national identity?
No, because when you are making it the only thing achievable, when you are holding it to a higher standard, you're actually going to encourage that type of toxic masculinity because everyone is trying to attain to it. Everyone is trying to get there. And so people are going to be encouraged to pursue and to take on these masculine qualities, these toxic masculine qualities, as you so put it, because people are going to want to actually attribute themselves to it. So it actually goes on to further push on and further encourage these masculine qualities. That is what we are seeing under the status quo. Now, boys and men are all encouraged to pursue athletic excellence to a harmful degree. Now, if we look at fields such as weightlifting or anything of those sorts, men and boys and men specifically are always encouraged to go to the top of their fields as they can. And what this often ends up, what we often see happening in these types of fields, especially at a competitive level, is that these types of people become obsessed with being at the top of their field, so that they look at taking chemical enhancements and all of these types of harmful chemicals to actually get themselves to this toxic, to this level of quality. And what we see from this is these masculine qualities are no longer actually being really qualities. They're these exaggerated feelings, these are exaggerated qualities. And what we see from this is that our egos are inflated. And what we see from this is that these masculine qualities are further reinforced as these extremely toxic. We win this debate based on which side gives the most benefit and value to New Zealanders as Kiwis. That is what the side is proposing. That is why the moot must stand.
We thank the speaker for his speech, and we will resume the live stream at the beginning of the second affirmative speech.